Warning, this story does contain slight gory elements to it, so please do be careful if you are sensitive to that sort of thing. Here's the beginning of Sweetie, Part 1. Sweetie was a normal Pegasus, except she wasn't. The time she lived in was different, and so was she. If you didn't have a cutie mark after age 7, you were sent away to a special school for talentless ponies and lived in squalor. Ponies with cutie marks lived normal lives, at least normal for this world. Normal was working from sunrise to sunset. The queen ruled with an iron hoof, forcing ponies who had gotten their cutie marks after said to work for her as slaves. If anyone even tried to barely disagree with her, she found out the pony was sentenced to death. The Pegasi had to make perfect weather, and it was never to rain on the palace, but the miles of garden watered by hoof, as she didn't want her garden too muddy. The only place she had no rule was the dark forest, not too far from the castle. The forest was home to rebels who were plotting to overthrow her and free the true rulers of Equestria, Princesses Luna and Celestia, who were slaves to make the sun and moon rise and set. Sweetie was 6 when it happened. The queen started making executions public. All ponies were forced to watch rebels die at the hands of fire. The rebels of the forest attacked during the execution of one of their suspected leaders. Sweetie tried to run and fell in the path of the queen. A guard slammed her with a rock and drug her to the palace, where the queen made her the queen's personal slave, an example to the public. Sweetie never got a cutie mark in those days. Sorry. She was told daily by herself and others that this was her life. No one loved her. She'd be a blank flame forever, a device for pain. The queen had guards beat her every day just for the queen's enjoyment. Sweetie was 20 now, older, but small and frail, bruises and cuts constantly on her body. Scars littered across her blank flank. Her ribs showed through her dirty and matted coat, and her wings had feathers out of place and bruises everywhere. Some guards cared enough to give her extra food, but most didn't. They kicked her as she passed, gave her more cuts with their swords, and laughed at her. The queen forced her to fly in the air every day while rocks were thrown at her, and if she stopped before the queen allowed it, she'd be beaten senseless. Hope came one day as rumors of a spy at the palace emerged. Sweetie met this spy one day. She was a unicorn, with a golden mane, pastel blue fur, and a shield as her cutie mark. She had stopped Sweetie and told her about this location in the Everfree Forest, as she called it. This pony's name was Golden Dust, and Sweetie never saw her again after the fire, or learned the reason for Golden Dust telling her this information. Sweetie set a fire in the kitchen as a distraction for Golden and Sweetie's escape. Golden was meant to meet Sweetie at the forest edge, but was caught and gave Sweetie the chance to run. She never looked back. Her face met the leaves of the forest head-on. She slowed down after a few moments. The forest was darker than outside it, and there were a lot of noises that she couldn't understand. She felt like she had heard footsteps, but couldn't see anyone. She hadn't spoken in years, so her voice was quiet and cracked as she called out, "Hello? Golden Dust sent me." There was no response. Her injuries were hurting her. She hadn't eaten for a while, so she stopped and sat down. Sweetie's point of view. When I woke up after accidentally falling asleep, I burst up, scared a guard was going to beat me, and not remembering for a second what had happened. "Calm down," Samir said as I backed myself into a wall and shut my eyes, bracing myself for what was normally a part of my routine. "Hun, no one's going to hurt you," a pony said with a slight southern accent. "Poor thing, she must have had an awful life," she whispered to the first pony I suspected, and then peeked my eyes open. A blue Pegasus with short rainbow hair and an orange pony with a blonde braid stood in front of a purple alicorn. The yellow Pegasus with a pink mane pushed past them and sat next to me. "Hello." "Hello, I'm Fluttershy." "Who are you?" she asked with a soft voice. I didn't answer, but I slightly relaxed. I noticed my leg had been rebandaged. "Do you want something to eat? Piggy can get you some," Fluttershy said again. I nodded, and the pink pony in the back of the group ran off. You knew Golden Dust? The rainbow-haired pony asked. I looked at her and back at the yellow one. Rainbow, leave her be. She's obviously been through a lot. Better get used to the place before you interrogate her, the orange one said. I'm Applejack. I nodded. Flutters, you stay with her. She seems to be more okay with you here, and probably because of your personality. Fluttershy nodded, and the rest left. The pink one returned with a cupcake, which I had seen the queen eat before. Here you go, Fluttershy said, handing me the food. I poked it and then took a bite. It was super good, a lot better than the stale bread or water with something in it. I guess you like it? I nodded. Sweetie Dawn, I said, my voice croaking. She looked at me with confusion for a second before realizing, oh, your name. I pushed the half-eaten cupcake away. I guess we shouldn't have given you so much. You most likely have been subject to stale food, and barely any of that. I stood, wincing a bit on the leg, and stretched out my wings. Silence was my second nature, but I could tell Fluttershy was uneasy. Why do you call this the ever-free forest? I asked. Oh, because we say this forest will always be free. So, like the forever free forest, she said, standing up. Want to go meet the others now? I was hesitant to face the rainbow-haired one again, and I had seen quite a few ponies pass the hut we were in. I nodded. Fluttershy led me out into a small village-looking place. This is the ever-free forest, where we live. After she showed me most of the village, we stopped at a bigger hut and went inside. Inside was the group from before, but with a white unicorn with a fancy purple mane, and a pastel purple unicorn with a mint and purple mane. A small green dragon stood next to the alicorn. Hey, Fluttershy, the orange one said and waved to me. Hey guys, this is Sweetie Dawn, Fluttershy said. You got her to talk? The rainbow-haired one asked. Fluttershy nodded. What happened to Golden Dust? The rainbow-haired one asked again, stepping close to me. Rain? Hush, Rarity, I have to know. She was caught while escaping, I said, my voice breaking multiple times. Is she alive? The rainbow-haired one raised her voice. I don't know, I said, shrinking into myself and trying to back away. They killed her. They freaking killed her so you could get away. Rainbow, tears came to my eyes, and the rainbow-haired one pushed me away, and with her strength and my weakness, pushed me across the room. I landed against the wall. The alicorn and Fluttershy rushed over to help me. Rainbow, as the orange-haired one began yelling at the rainbow-haired one.